These are really nice chairs, Morten. I could easily get comfortable in these.
I agree, but the topics we're about to introduce are actually calling for us to sit on the edge of our chairs, you know.
You're absolutely right. With the ongoing transition in maritime towards a decarbonized and more digital future, there is no time to rest. Is there? We know that in the coming decade and beyond, ship owners, managers and charterers will need a sharp strategy and a solid risk management in order to stay compliant.
And to stay competitive as well. From working with many customers at different stages in their decarbonization process, DNV has many learnings and insights to share. We address these from 3 different angles, covering some of the organizational, technical and operational challenges that ship owners and managers are faced with. ESG and sustainability. Green and sustainable financial products are becoming a new ticket to trade. How to manage the risks and opportunities for your company.
Many owners are surprised when they see their carbon intensity and realize the reductions they need to make. Alternative fuels. What are the key barriers and what fuel will work best for your fleet? In addition to addressing all of these challenges, we also look at how they can be overcome. DNV is always pleased to support, wherever you are in your decarbonization process.
ESG, environmental and social governance, is about understanding and controlling the risks and opportunities your company has and how it affects your entire value chain.
The maritime industry sees an increased attention on ESG and sustainability from multiple stakeholders. As such, there is a need for a fact-based scientific approach to telling your sustainability story. By performing a materiality assessment, you will get an insight into what positive and negative impacts you have on the 17 UN development goals. A very good tool to be working on these issues.
The maritime industry is an essential part of the global value chains. There are 3 main drivers behind the ESG initiatives in shipping: regulation, access to capital, value chain integration.
Regulators and consumers push for transparency and disclosure, and reporting is becoming a must-have. There's to report upon. The best tip is to understand what your stakeholders need and report accordingly. Green and sustainable financial products are becoming the new ticket to trade. Business as usual is not an option anymore. Your investors want to see a company strategy with a clear ESG focus, dedicated ESG targets, and an implementation plan before they decide if they want to invest in your company. Looking at the value chain through an ESG lens is essential for creating success with your new ESG strategy. Guiding your suppliers and employees through new ways of working and reporting will help you deliver on your promise to your investors and customers.
The most common challenges related to ESG for shipping are focused on strategy, parameters, data, and presentation.
ESG and sustainability needs to be integrated into your strategy and risk management process. It's about how you turn the risk into a competitive advantage for a maritime business. When incorporating ESG factors into your strategy process, you need to focus on the long-term values. How do you stay competitive in the future? The key is to show that your company is setting itself up to succeed in the future by understanding the expectations of your stakeholders and being proactive in addressing these expectations. Very often this boils down to transparency and trust. Ensuring that your stakeholders believe that you have the capability of managing your risks is essential. And to do that, you need to identify and address the elements that have a de facto impact. You need to focus on what's important. That sounds easy, right? It can be quite challenging. What KPIs should we choose? How do we collect and verify the data? And finally, you need to pay close attention to how you document the performance on your KPIs in order to convince your stakeholders. Odfjell took a very proactive approach to this when they chose to go for shipping's first sustainability-linked bond. And DNV has been a contributor to Odfjell in this process.
In shipping company Odfjell, sustainability and ESG is high on the agenda.
Sustainability for us is about being long-term. It's about the decisions that we are taking today that will affect tomorrow. One of the biggest challenges that we see today is climate change. And we also see that the emission from our industry is causing climate change. That is why emission and reduction of emission and climate is material to us. One of the best signs for our ability to be sustainable and being long-term is our 106-year-old history. We have for a long period of time investigated several opportunities for sustainable financing. Last year, we decided to develop a sustainability-linked financing framework, and under this framework we could issue bonds and also on loans. The benefits of sustainable financing framework is that it has a flexibility for use of the proceeds for general purposes compared to a green bond. Our sustainability targets are quite technical, and in order to provide comfort for investors, we needed to ensure that we could explain that to the market and explain it to investors. And that's why we onboarded DNV, because DNV has that technical insight and also has that understanding and competence to really provide that comfort to investors. We're very happy that we got a lot of interest on this sustainability-linked loan and sustainability-linked bond that we have issued. It's interesting to see the huge interest from investors, and the bond was also substantially oversubscribed. So that was a good experience for us. The working with the DNV was also a very good experience. This was the first time we did this, and I think it is important that when you get a third party coming in, they need to challenge you and ask questions, and that's what DNV did. And I think that we, together with DNV and also our arrangers, made a quite good product on this. Sustainability for us is about being long-term. It's about the decisions that we are taking today that will have an effect tomorrow. Climate change is one of our time's biggest challenges, and we as an industry have to do our part. We see a strong correlation about emissions and also climate change. And we need to set ambitious targets in order to reduce our emission. Reducing emission has many different owners through the value chain. It requires that our total industry contributes and collaborate in order to achieve this. And it will also generate a lot of new opportunities. Last year we developed ambitious climate targets. Parallel to that, we also developed a sustainability-linked financing framework. Under this framework, we can issue bonds and issue loans. The good thing about this framework is that it's flexible, and we can also use the proceeds for general corporate matters.
After having worked with more than 1,500 companies on their ESG and sustainability strategies, DNV's main findings and tips for ship owners and managers can be summarized as follows. Understand the risks and opportunities. Navigate the requirement jungle. Look ahead linking strategy to technology and organization. Implement change cost effectively.
It's hard work for sure, but it's worth it. And for us, it's really inspiring to be part of the process and see that our clients are fit for the future.
Shipping is experiencing increasing pressure to decarbonize its operations and to reduce emissions to air. In April 2018, IMO adopted an ambitious greenhouse gas reduction strategy with a vision to decarbonize shipping as soon as possible within this century. Shipping's main challenge is how to realize this path to decarbonization.
This is a great concern for all ship owners. the pressure is mainly coming from three main drivers: regulation and policies, access to capital and cost of capital, and finally expectations from consumers. And it's not only about staying in compliance, it's basically about staying in business.
The Ship Design Index EEXI will be applicable to all vessels above 5,000 GT by the end of 2021. This is the most imminent individual issue ship owners are requesting support for from DNV today. However, EEXI is a one-time event, and measures for compliance are within reach for most vessels. However, this is not the case for the Carbon Intensity Indicator.
The coming Operational Carbon Intensity Indicator, the CII, could become a much bigger hurdle for ship owners and managers. In addition, finance institutions and charterers are driving the owners towards similar requirements.
As a consequence of the Carbon Intensity Indicator, the so-called CII, ships in operation need to improve on emissions year on year. Most new buildings ordered today will probably also need improvements during their lifetime.
In our experience, many ship owners are surprised when they see their carbon intensity and understand the reductions they need to make. Fleet consisting of new vessels is no exception. Even for these, the owners need to make a plan for how to reduce emissions.
The regulatory, financial and business consequences for ship owners not complying with the various carbon intensity targets remains to be seen. However, regulatory requirements tend to move in a stricter direction. As such, this is a risk that ship owners must consider.
What ship owners need to identify is what is the most cost-efficient technical and operational measures to reduce my emissions, in the short term and in the long term.
Ship owners have started carrying out EEXI and CII assessments to prepare transition roadmaps for their vessels and fleets.
For EEXI, many customers find it challenging to get the right information they need and to decide right measures to meet the requirement. Based on the more than 1,000 EEXI and CII calculations we have carried out, main takeaway is that for large deadweight tankers and bulk carriers, and almost all containers and general cargo vessels, engine power limitation is the best solution. For small tankers and bulkers below 100,000 deadweight, engine power limitation alone will have large consequences on the speed, and consequently the operation profile of the vessels. For this type of vessels, additional measures such as propulsion improvement devices, wind-assisted propulsion, air lubrication systems, or shaft generators could be useful measures.
DNV has cooperated with major yards, ship owners and cargo owners to develop concepts utilizing new technologies and alternative fuels.
Owners need to set targets and start prepare strategies and fleet transition roadmaps for the next decades, and sooner rather than later shift to alternative fuels. At DNV, we are happy to support no matter where you are in the process.
In previous transitions in shipping, the industry moved from wind to coal and steam and then to oil. Every ship made the same transition. The next transition is different. We know a move away from fossil-based fuels is coming, but which fuel comes next? In DNV's Maritime forecast to 2050, our models showed that going forward, shipping would have to rely on a much wider variety of fuels. However, exactly which fuels will be widely available and where is still uncertain.
Everything boils down to how the fleet and each ship can stay below the relevant carbon intensity reduction trajectory. This is referred to as the decarbonization stairway.
Alternative fuels for shipping all face challenges and barriers to their uptake.
In the shorter term, energy efficiency measures and energy harvesting combined with operational measures may be sufficient. But in the longer term, alternative fuels will be necessary. The key barriers include technical maturity level of converters and systems, storage. Most alternative fuels requires more space on board, cost of the required machinery and fuel storage on vessels, fuel price expectations, availability of fuel, global bunkering infrastructure. On top, Safety will be a primary concern for several fuel types.
Today, choosing the right fuel strategy is probably the most important decision a ship owner or ship manager needs to make for their next vessel. But planning for fuel flexibility with fuel-ready solutions could be a way of staying below the carbon intensity reduction trajectory while preparing for a low or zero carbon transition. By doing so, ship owners minimize the risk of stranded assets.
All alternative fuels for shipping face barriers and challenges to their uptake. If we use ammonia as an example, we can see just how these barriers come into play in our alternative fuels dashboard. Moving the markers rapidly from the red on the left to the green on the right will be of great importance for the shipping industry to achieve the IMO ambitions on greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Without a development that moves the status markers significantly to the right for ammonia, this fuel will be perceived by ship owners as too immature. As a result, they will not risk investing in the new technology required. For ammonia, the profile indicates that there are significant barriers that needs to be solved, such as maturing the converter technology, as well as developing the bunkering infrastructure. As indicated, safety is a primary barrier.
DNV is committed to contribute to overcome the safety barrier for ammonia. We've recently published a handbook on ammonia safety, together with the industry. In July this year, DNV class rules for ammonia as fuel will follow. Simultaneously, our new fuel-ready notation will be published, preparing ships for future conversion to ammonia, methanol/ethanol, LPG, or LNG as fuel. For a new building, choosing the right fuel strategy is one of the most important decisions an owner has to make.
We need to keep in mind that owners invest in engines and fuel storage systems, not the fuel as such. However, there is a significant risk that for a vessel built today, the most competitive fuel for the ship's early life will not necessarily be the same as at the end of its lifetime. Considering the large uncertainties over the lifetime of your ship, you therefore need to plan for fuel flexibility and fuel-ready solutions. By doing so, you stay below the relevant carbon intensity reduction trajectory, thereby minimizing the risk of investing in stranded assets.
The new fuel-ready DNV class notation indicates that a conversion to an alternative fuel has been accommodated and verified in the new build design. It is essential to focus on safety in this transition. Robust safety regulations must be developed in parallel with the technological development in the industry to ensure a safe and effective implementation of new fuels like ammonia and hydrogen. IMO has an important role to play in setting international standards. This is a demanding process that takes time. For LNG, it took a decade.
For DNV, safety and managing risks are at the core of what we do. We have developed class rules for LNG, LPG, methanol, and soon ammonia, and we are working with industry partners on hydrogen safety. If the safety aspects are not accounted for, we may risk compromising the use of the new environmentally friendly fuels. Our call to action is therefore to keep a close eye on safety throughout the maritime transition.
In this time of transformation, who do you trust? Only with trust can technology fulfill its potential and solve humanity's greatest challenge. DNV is shaping the future of assurance, helping our customers navigate these complex transformations with confidence. From the shipyard to the container, to the supply chains keeping industry moving, or the production, transport and transmission of energy, DNV unravels complexity to provide assurance for our customers. Whether it is physical assets or the data they feed upon, DNV's experts understand the transformation happening around us. DNV, when trust matters.